All right, maximizing your productivity with the Kiro CLI. It used to be called Amazon Q Developer CLI. First of all, I got a quote for you. Today, more than a quarter of all the code generated at Google is generated by AI, basically, reviewed by their engineers and tweaked by their engineers, enabling people to get a lot more done more quickly, more efficiently. Same with Microsoft, same story, well, similar story. 20 to 30% of the code in their repos and sometimes even entire projects is generated by AI. I don't have the similar quote from AWS, but this is, I guess, a bit similar. So they've used Amazon Q Developer to help them upgrade their Java, some of their Java projects. So upgrading from Java 8 and 11 to Java 17, saving 4,500 years of development work compared to manual upgrades. So when I saw these quotes, I thought to myself, we need to get on board with that. Every single role in IT, and actually outside of IT as well, is being redefined by AI. According to Gartner, boosting productivity by 50%. Traditional roles getting augmented with AI, but not necessarily disappearing, but certainly changing. And so in my mind, it's never been more important to get on board with the latest tools and frameworks, whatever they are, and to be able to evolve them and use them in our roles. So my name is Faye Ellis. If you haven't seen me before, I work for Pluralsight, which is a company that helps organizations to upskill, helps engineering teams to learn new skills so they can deliver on transformation projects, be that cloud transformation, AI transformation, etc. And it's a little bit about me. I've worked with cloud for a long time as a sysadmin for many years, in DevOps, as an architect as well, an architect putting pizza boxes in the data center as well as a cloud architect. And in the last few years, the last 8 years, I've been teaching AWS content. And I'm based in London, if you want to talk about something else. I like baking bread. Okay, so in this session, we'll talk a bit about the Kiro CLI. I'll share some sample prompts to try, how I personally use it to maximize my own productivity in my role, some mistakes to avoid, how tech roles are changing, and at Pluralsight we have recently published this, the tech forecast. If you want a copy of it, I don't have any more paper copies, but you're welcome to come and look at it, and it's downloadable as well. I can give you the link to download it, but it basically tells you loads of information about how roles are changing, what the skills gaps are, what the challenges are at the moment. And finally, I've got some free resources to share with you as well. Okay, so first of all, let's have a show of hands. Who works with AWS technology regularly? Quite a few of you. Have anyone used Q Developer before? It's been out for a while, and you might have had mixed results with it, depending on how long ago you started using it. Has anyone used the Q Developer CLI agent? It's now called the Kiro CLI. Okay, well, okay, a few of you, yeah. And if you haven't used those things, have you had any success using Claude models before to do things? And I think that Claude is the best for working with AWS, the best for kind of technical stuff, working with code, etc. All right, well, you're in the right place because you're going to find out all about Q Developer and Kiro. So there's 3 different ways to get started. First of all, if you're working in the AWS console, you've got Q Developer in the console. It's great for troubleshooting. You can actually give it access to your AWS resources in your account if you want to have very specific advice from it and interrogate it and get it to help you with what's exactly going on in your account. Or you can just deny it access and it will give you generic troubleshooting advice like, help me troubleshoot this particular error message without actually reading any of your resources. If you like to use the IDE, you can use the Kiro IDE. It's actually a fork of VS Code, so if you like using VS Code, it's a version of that. But it's got this ability to interact with Kiro already built in. So you've got the ability to chat, to integrate MCP servers, and to do loads of other things if you like working in the IDE. But I personally love working in the terminal. It hasn't got all the bells and whistles. It's not distracting like an IDE can be. I'm not personally creating loads and loads of code on a daily basis, but I am working with QDeveloper. I'm writing Python scripts. I'm creating CloudFormation templates, that kind of thing. And I can do that in the Kiro CLI in my terminal on my Mac. And you'll see it in action. Okay, similar kind of chatty-based tools. Might be things like GitHub Copilot, great for code suggestions, auto-completion, maybe general purpose coding. Google Gemini, another alternative, great if you're working with Google Cloud. I'm not personally. And ChatGPT, maybe you can get it to help you generate code snippets. Maybe you can explain code. I don't know. I don't have great success with ChatGPT, and really, if you're working with AWS services, you should really be using their own tools. So if you regularly work with AWS, or you're working on an AWS type project, if you're working in the console, if you use the AWS CLI, SDKs, if you use CloudFormation or Terraform to build AWS infrastructure, you should definitely try the Kiro CLI and see how it goes for you. And you can try it for free. So you get quite a generous free tier, enough to actually get started with it, 50 credits per month. A very simple prompt is going to consume less than 1 credit. But if you're doing very sophisticated prompts or using the more expensive models, it's going to start using more and more credits. But when you first sign up, you get 500 free credits to play around with. The paid tiers are not particularly expensive. If you need more than that, I think probably 1,000 credits is pretty generous for the kind of work that I do. Of course, you will need to opt out of data sharing if you're using the free tier. When you use the free tier on anything, of course, you have to be careful that your data or how your data is being used. Certainly within Kiro, by default, your data is used for improving the service and probably ending up in the models themselves. So you can opt out in the settings, very, very easy to do so. But if you're using the Pro tier, it's not using your data in any way. And I went into my settings this afternoon to make sure that they were disabled. I recently upgraded and yeah, they were enabled. So if you search for telemetry or service improvement, you'll find the setting and you just disable it there. Very easy. So what's so different about the Kiro CLI? Well, it's more than just Q&A. It's not just chatting. You can use it to execute shell commands. Remember I said it's running in the terminal. It can read and write files on your local system. It will only write files if you allow it to. It can take action by invoking the AWS CLI, so it can actually do stuff for you. And it supports loads of different programming languages, pretty much anything that you can think of. So the old ones like C, C++, Java, it also supports Ruby, Go, Python, loads and loads of them. I've got them written down here, the ones I can't remember. Okay, Rust, PHP, Kotlin, shell scripting, of course, SQL, Scala, JSON, YAML, and HCL. So pretty much everything. All in your terminal. So you can use it in your terminal, very easy to install, whether you're using Mac, Linux, or Windows. You can also extend its capabilities by adding MCP servers. So this allows you to just hook in different tools that are going to augment its capabilities. There's one called AWS Pricing, enabling you to do cost analysis just from your terminal. There's a Terraform MCP server. If you work with Terraform, it will help you to review your Terraform code for best practices, that kind of thing. There's an EKS MCP server if you use Elastic Kubernetes Service. There's one for diagrams, which we'll see later on, helping you to generate diagrams. You can generate diagrams based on your prompt or based on reading your Terraform or CloudFormation template. And there's also an AWS documentation MCP server as well. So it can search through the documentation and give you an answer that's not hallucinated. These are just a few examples of the ones that I found interesting, but there are absolutely loads of them on aws.labs.github.io. Okay, so I'm going to give you a few sample prompts that you could try out for yourselves, and hopefully some of these might resonate with you depending on what kind of work you do. And these are just really examples to explore to hopefully save you some time in your daily activities. Try them out, make them your own, modify them, and just use them as inspiration, really. So here's the first one. Creating a new EC2 instance that's a clone of an existing instance in my account and specifying which security group and which IAM roles to use. So I can get Q to actually do all of that for me, to create an AMI that clones this existing instance and then apply the same, apply what I've asked for, so using the same security group and IAM role, saving me a few minutes of doing that. Here I'm asking it to take on a persona, so to act as a cost optimization analyst and help me to write a Python script that's going to do a bunch of things for me. So list the EC2 instances in all regions, filter for low CPU utilization over the past 30 days, create a CSV report with instance ID, region, average CPU, and then send that CSV as an attachment to an SNS topic that I'm going to provide. Help me troubleshoot an error message. I want to say Q, sorry, Kiro CLI. They only changed the name like 2 weeks ago. So you can get the Kiro CLI to help you troubleshoot, like perform a step-by-step approach to troubleshooting something that you've never seen before. We'll see an example of that in a moment. Review something that I've written for best practice, basically, ensuring my CloudFormation template for a mission-critical environment is using multi-AZ resilience. I want it to suggest improvements for security, high performance, cost efficiency, etc. Make sure that I've not missed anything out. So it can actually read that file from my folder on my local machine. This is a more complicated one. What about generating an approach to breaking a monolithic application into a bunch of different microservices so that I can deploy it as Lambda functions? Well, I can get Kiro to help me generate that step-by-step approach and then review the approach, refine it, and then get it to apply the plan across my code base. But I might tell it to, instead of changing my existing code, create some new source files, create tests and documentation as well, and then iterate around that. I can also get it to help me with the storage on my local machine. So let's say I'm running out of disk space. I can ask it to help me suggest which large files could be deleted. I don't actually want it to delete them. I want it to give me a list of files that could be deleted. So maybe I've got copies of certain files, especially images files, where I've saved an image, a picture for social media on my laptop, and I've got it in 5 different places, and it's just the same thing. I can get Kiro to help me identify those things that I really need to clean up. Okay, so how do I actually use it to maximize my productivity? And my role at Pluralsight is really very much a blend of technical work, but also lots of non-technical work as well. And I really describe myself as a cloud architect primarily, but also a builder or integrator, and a content creator as well in my day job. So I am responsible for creating and designing and delivering online lessons, labs, practical exercises, but all of that stuff needs a load of slides. It needs diagrams. I have to fill in a bunch of documents as well to explain to our curriculum team what I'm actually going to do. And I also need to perform research as well. A huge part of my job is hands-on technical implementation with AWS services, including loads and loads of time spent troubleshooting. And if you've ever used AWS before, you will know that you have to sharpen your troubleshooting skills. So I'm designing and building practical exercises using the AWS services. And I also have to work with a bunch of constraints on our platform. So we provide a sandbox for our customers to use to actually practice these exercises. And the constraint around that is that it's an empty environment. It has to be built from scratch every single time. So there's also some other constraints in terms of you may or may not be allowed to access certain services. But ultimately, the main thing is I have to build everything from scratch every single time. So that kind of gives you a bit of background about the kind of things that I'm working on. But Kiro can help me with all of this stuff. The backstory is that we're all being asked to do more with less. In my own role, we've been asked to deliver 500 unique pieces of content per quarter with a very small team of people like me. It's only about 16 of us. So that's an awful lot for us to have to deliver. Every day there's a new skill to learn, as you know. That's why you're all here. And for me to teach as well. So I challenged myself over the last quarter to integrate AI into every single thing that I do, apart from sending emails and messages. So all of this stuff, Kiro can help me with. Right, I've got a bunch of demos showing you how I have been using it so you can see it in action. First of all, asking for help with the AWS CLI. And if you've used the AWS CLI recently, you'll know it can be a bit difficult with trying to understand how to use it for different services and how to call the APIs and get it right. If you don't type the command properly, it's not going to work, and it's probably not going to give you a brilliant error message to help you figure out why. So I was using Amazon Comprehend. It does sentiment detection on text, and I kicked off a job. The job's going to take ages, but I did it wrong. So I can ask Kiro to help me understand, okay, how am I going to stop this job instead of waiting for it to finish? So here I am on my Mac. First of all, I start with in a project folder. So I've just created this folder. Amazon Q demo is my folder that I'm working in, but it will be constrained to working within that folder for this particular session. So I'm starting off a chat with the Kiro CLI. I can select manually which model I want it to use. I'm using Haiku here because it's just an easy little thing. Here it's just telling me that it's actually using the MCP server, the AWS documentation MCP server. And it's searched the documentation and it's found the example command that I can just cut and paste into my Cloud Shell. And it's telling me here that I just need to make sure that I replace the job ID with the real job ID. Next, I'm asking it to help me with a troubleshooting situation. So I've configured what I think is the correct IAM permissions, but I'm getting access denied here when I try to add an object to my S3 bucket. How can I approach troubleshooting? And it could be all sorts of things are wrong here. So let's ask Kiro. And it's giving me a whole bunch of things that I can try and use to approach actually troubleshooting this. So first, checking the S3 bucket policy, verifying object ownership and access control lists, checking encryption requirements, which I might not have thought of, block public access settings, VPC endpoint policies, or how I configured object lock as well. Ensuring that I've got the correct ARN in my bucket policy, and do I have permission to use the KMS key as well? So lots of things that I can check. I've got a little checklist of where to actually start here. Next, I want it to review an IAM policy that I've written and make sure that I've got the right security best practices. So let's see what it comes up with. And I deliberately left some security holes so that it would actually have something to report on here. Okay, so it's reading the file off my laptop. It does actually go faster than this. I just slow it down for the demo so I can actually read it. So there we go, we've got overly permissive resource specification. I've used a wildcard for region account. It's got some recommended improvements there, telling me to replace with my specific region account the function name of the Lambda function that it's associated, and asking me, do I actually want it to update the policy? If I provide that information, it will update the policy for me, and I can agree to or not. Next, getting some help with an AWS SDK. Has anyone used Amazon Bedrock before? When it first came out, about maybe 2 years ago or a bit more than that, it was quite difficult to figure out how to actually interact with this service. It's only API based. So you had to really know a bit of coding and be able to understand the AWS documentation in order to use Bedrock. I found it quite difficult to get started, and I must say I did try with Amazon Q Developer back in the day to try and get my head around this, and I did find it had a few hallucinations. I was very disillusioned with it because it had all this promise, but it wasn't as good as it is now. But with Kiro, it's fantastic. It's using Claude under the hood. We've also got access to the MCP server as well. Let's make sure that's actually running. And with access to the MCP server, you know that it's not going to hallucinate because it's actually getting that information from the AWS documentation. So if you ever actually had questions about the AWS documentation, you've got an opportunity to interact with an intelligent agent that can interpret it and answer your questions. So there we go, it's given me loads of information, it's given me some Python code that I can use, it's telling me what IAM permissions I need if I want to actually invoke a model, and asking if I've got a specific use case that I want examples for. Creating synthetic data. This is something that I do quite a lot if I'm trying to test something out and make sure it works. Here I wanted it to create some personally identifiable information for me. And Kiro can just do this in a few seconds, saving me the time of actually like searching for some or creating some myself. And there we go, it's created it for me. And it's asking, do I actually trust it to write that file to my local system? And there we go, it's created the CSV file for me. Best practices. So I want to understand the best practices when invoking models using Bedrock. And there are lots of different parameters, hyperparameters that you can set. But I want to understand, okay, what is actually the best practice? Where should I start with all of this? And this is also going to use the AWS documentation MCP server. With this one, it actually calls the MCP server a few times because I've asked it quite a broad question, and it's going to come back with quite a lot of information. So there we can see that it's using that tool, asking me to trust using that tool as well. And it's going to come back with all the different kind of parameters that you can set when you're calling foundation models using Bedrock. So things like temperature, top P, which controls the kind of creativity of the model, top K, max tokens and sequences, and giving best practice where to actually start from. So this can all really be very helpful when researching how to use new services and not getting you stuck down that rabbit hole of searching on the internet, browsing through documentation which might not be written in a way that's very easy to understand, or even focused on the kind of thing that you're doing right now. I also think that this will be really useful if you're preparing for one of the exams. So the AWS recently released, or last year they released, the what's it called? The Machine Learning Engineer Associate and the AI Practitioner. And certainly the AI Practitioner tests you on things like top K and top P. So I think being able to interrogate Kiro and get it to explain things to you, what happens if I change top K for my when I'm calling models in Bedrock, or how do I adjust the creativity of models in Bedrock, Kiro can interrogate the AWS documentation and find those answers for you. So you can definitely use it to help, I think, improve your understanding of certain areas. This one I really like, getting it to create a diagram for me. And I'm not brilliant at creating diagrams. Sometimes I get writer's block and I don't really know where to start with this diagram. So here I'm just asking it to help me create a diagram for a 3-tier web application using a few different services. So application load balancer, Elastic Container Service with Fargate, which is the serverless platform for running Docker containers, and Aurora database across multi-AZ, and then just saving that file to my local folder. This is going to use the AWS Diagrams MCP server to do this. There we go, it's calling that MCP server. Asking, do I allow it to use the MCP server? So it's busy creating the diagram, and it saved it to my local machine. And here's the diagram. It's actually not that bad. I couldn't use it in a course, but maybe I could use this kind of diagram if I was writing a blog post or an article. Or imagine I was in a meeting with a colleague and I want to explain to them how I'm building a certain architecture. Or if I wanted it to translate a Terraform or a CloudFormation template and build a diagram showing what's going to get built by that template. So I can use it to really validate my thinking, make sure that there's nothing missing. So my results from all of this, trying to actually save some time using AI in my role. I really found that the Kiro CLI / QDeveloper CLI, as it was a game changer for me, and it has given me significant time savings, reduced my time for course content creation by 25 to 50%. We're just coming to the end of the year. I actually had a meeting with my manager today and they told me they're going to promote me. And yeah, go me. I don't think it's just because of this, but it is to do with being more efficient, getting more done. I was able to double the amount of content I created from last year and have the quality still remain really high, because it isn't just about quantity, it's about keeping it to really high quality, and we get everything peer reviewed where I work. And they also said to me that I was producing the most content out of everyone in the whole organization, so it really has helped me. One of the things it really has helped me with is reduced context switching. So switching by searching through the documentation, going on Stack Overflow, having like 25 tabs open on my browser and then trying to find that thing that I know is going to fix my problem right now. Just the stress of our roles right now, I think working in tech can be really overwhelming. So this is one way that you can kind of lift the load, I think. Preserving energy, headspace, to focus on the more creative parts of my role, really that only a human can do. So instead of spending my time troubleshooting scripts or troubleshooting AWS, it's nice to be able to use my creative muscles instead. But what about the mistakes to avoid? I'm sure all of you have seen all of these mistakes before. So hallucinations, factual errors, not only are they dangerous, but they actually waste our time, and they mean that we have to spend time troubleshooting AI. Why should we do that? This thing needs to actually be working properly for us to actually save us time. So one thing that you can do is make sure that you're customizing it using high quality data, providing data that's actually useful for the problem that you're trying to solve. I think in the context of the Kiro CLI, that means making sure that you're hooking in the right MCP servers, make sure you're referring to the AWS documentation, using AWS best practices, etc. And if there's something that you're in doubt of, or maybe generally is a good practice, requesting citations and references to where it actually got its information from, especially if you're working in production. So we don't really want to be over-reliant on these tools without validating the results and without actually understanding what the output is. You know, understanding the output when we get it to create scripts for us, to recommend best practices, etc., making sure that we read things properly and we have like a critical approach to accepting the results. Because AI, of course, should be an assistant, it's not an authority, it's not our boss, is it? And ultimately, decisions should be made by a human, with AI just helping us, giving us a helping hand to get to those decisions. Of course, there's always the risk of data leakage, and especially if you're using the free tier of anything, being careful not to provide your own confidential data or your company's confidential data, and just being really careful, particularly with any publicly available tools, especially when you are using the free tier. And opt out of data sharing if you can. Make sure you check your settings. You know, usually it's easy to find those settings. So for me, I think that tech roles are definitely changing, and they will continue to change over the next sort of 2, 3, 4, 5 years. I do think that what this kind of means for us at the moment is that there's a lot of things to benefit from. Productivity gains, preserving our mental energy, giving us headspace to focus on like more strategic work, other tasks, things that we never feel like we've got time to do. And really that shift in skill set towards higher value tasks. And I think for a lot of us as techie people, we're going to become a lot more involved in the way that businesses are run, in translating business requirements into technical like solutions. I think we're all going to become much more architects, maybe. And really, I think that the only option we have is to embrace progress and lean into the areas that only a human can excel at. So when it comes to thriving with AI, I do see a really rising demand across our customers. I just spent the last week or so at re:Invent, and certainly in conversations with my peers, that there is a requirement for builders, integrators, developers, engineers who can work with these tools, no matter what they are, you know, Kiro or whatever. Understand the strengths and limitations, so where they're great, where they're not so great, and being able to adapt, take on board new technologies, work effectively with new tools, as well as bringing like human context, empathy to technology. Ultimately, blending technology with our own unique expertise to give us superpowers. So my challenge for you is really to consider what could be automated in your own role. So maybe that's repetitive or long-winded tasks that you end up doing. Think about how you might describe the kind of problems that you see on the daily. And then think about how the Kiro CLI could potentially help you. Even if you're not working with AWS that much, you can use it for Python, scripting, other coding activities. Experiment with it in your daily tasks. Start with small, very low-risk tasks, the kind of things that I've shown you today. Compare the output that you get with your own output to validate the quality and really give you that reassurance that it's doing the right thing. Track your productivity gains. That is really what kind of got me on board with these kind of tools, is when I saw that I could do things faster, get bigger things done in less time. And share successes as well as failures with your team so that they can see, they can learn with you, so that they can also make suggestions, so that they can adapt or adopt some of the things that you've been doing and avoid some of the things that haven't been working so well. And then finally, these tools are continuously evolving. So you may have tried something before, not been very impressed, thought it was wasting your time, but these models are getting refreshed all the time. Certainly under the hood, Kiro is using a range of different models, and those are getting refreshed all the time and getting better and better. And you can also provide your own context, and as you get better working with these tools, as you get better at prompting them, then you will find it all improving. All right, finally, I've got some additional resources for you, a couple of tutorials that, these are just articles that I wrote. One is around using the MCP servers with the Q CLI. It's pretty much the same under the hood. And 10 ways that I use the Q Developer CLI / Kiro to save time, which is just an extended version, really, of this talk in kind of article form. And that's it. That's it from me. Thank you so much. Oh, thank you.